A Park City wrestler with a lot of weight on his shoulders headed into his senior season. We talked to Jimi Letchford about his plans as he aims for the state tournament. Also, a kids program that is preparing for the next generation of athletes for the games. It's all coming up right now on the Scoreboard. Hey everyone, welcome back into the Scoreboard. Right now, we are joined by one of Park City's best wrestlers. It is Jimi Letchford. And Jimi, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, man. We wanted to kick things off. We wanted to get to know you. I don't believe we've ever had you on the Scoreboard. So we like to get to know the athletes here in Park City, in Colville, Camas, and in Heber as well. But how did you get started in sports, and what specifically do you play?
So my main sport is wrestling. Really started around the age 6. My dad was a big wrestler growing up. He wrestled through college. Got me into the sport. And yeah, wrestling is my main sport. So before, like when I was younger, pretty much until I got into high school, I actually didn't really enjoy the sport, to be completely honest with you. Didn't really try, and for that reason, I wasn't very good. Until I finally started enjoying the sport after I started working hard at it, and now I'm gonna be a senior, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I've got to be honest with you. Just last year, we went and talked to Coach Combs, and we filmed a little bit of practice. And I specifically remember you. And the reason I remembered you is because we always talked about Annika Futch, Stone Combs, Jared Miller. Those were like the 3 big names. They all competed at state. They all did very well at state. But you were the other guy in the room, and you were an absolute savage. I mean, you were so good. So I'm very excited to be able to talk to you. I wanted to kick things off and ask you a little bit about that. Why do you think that, why did you start to love the sport of wrestling?
It really taught me, it really taught me lessons, life lessons. Mostly about hard work, and it's like wrestling's it's obviously a physical sport, but it's also a mental sport. And I really started to love to learn that aspect of the learn to love that aspect of the sport, and really get into it in that aspect. So like, and it's cool because like, it's just you and the other guy on the mat, and you have nobody else to blame. So if you lose, then it's completely on you. So I really love that part of the sport. Like it's all on you, and there's some people say that you have already won or lost the match before you've even got there, based on the hard work you've put in beforehand, the mental state you're kind of in at that time, and. Yeah, and I've just really learned to love that. Yeah.
When you're stepping onto the mat, what is kind of your self-talk? What are you saying to yourself in order to feel like, if you have the wrong attitude walking onto the mat, like you said, you've probably already kind of lost.
Yeah. My dad always says that wrestling is imposing your will on someone. You want to go out and impose your will on them. Mm-hmm. So you can't go out there and being like, oh, like we'll see what happens, like, this guy's probably better than me, like he looks tough. No, it's you go out there and you do what you want to do. It's your match, you don't wrestle the other guy's match. Playing your game, playing to your strengths. Exactly.
And so with your dad, you mentioned that he wrestled collegiately. That's a very tall order. Not a lot of people get the chance to do that. Where did he compete at?
The Naval Academy.
Very cool.
Yeah, so yeah, he grew up in New Jersey. Which is known to be a pretty difficult wrestling state. So he grew up there, went to the Naval Academy, and wrestled all the way through his collegiate years. And then he's basically been my coach since I started. So.
Is he the one that kind of got you into it? Did you want to do it because of your dad, or how did that turn out?
My dad kind of introduced me to the sport. It wasn't on my radar, you know. It wasn't like I was only like 6 years old when I started, and then I took like a 2-year break when I was 10. But it was like he was the one that put it on my radar, and he was like, yeah, let's get you into wrestling, and I'm glad he did. I mean, for years I wasn't, but you know, now I am.
What made you want to come back after that 2-year hiatus when you were 10?
I came back, I think it was in like 7th grade, so I just kind of missed it. I'd missed the grind, you know, and yeah, I wasn't really doing much during that whole 2 years. I was just kind of being a bum. So yeah, it was a good, like, you know, break that I probably needed at the time, and after that is kind of where I started to kindle my love for the sport.
I think one of the big things that people don't understand is how difficult the sport of wrestling is. Can you talk a little bit about how much work has to be put in? I mean, it is probably, this is just my opinion here really quick, but it is probably the most difficult sports, and there are so few eyes that really focus in on it. Can you talk a little bit about the grind it takes to really be good at wrestling?
Yeah, so there's a few aspects to it. One is the work that you put in beforehand. Like I mentioned before, you have to be strong. Like, you have to be good, like pretty strong for your weight. So you have to put in that work. You have to work on your technique, right? You have to do, you know, a double leg 100 times in practice before you can do it really well in a match, right? 3, this does not apply to everybody. It especially applies to me. Is cutting weight. That really sucks. Making weight is one of the big challenges in wrestling, and it's hard because you go into the match, you know, you're obviously a little bit stronger than the other guy because, you know, you cut down from the next weight class up, but, you know, you're a little bit diminished because you hadn't eaten or drank until, like, you know, probably an hour before your match. So yeah, that part of the sport is difficult. It's the hours that you put in beforehand. Like, we do 2-hour practices, and then we do, you know, whatever else you want to do on top of that. Like, some of us will go to the gym after, like, or just like do anything extra, really. That's what brings you onto the mat, like having the competitive edge. And then once you're on the mat, the difficult part about the sport is staying in it mentally. Wrestling is a big mental game, and you get onto the mat and say the guy's just as good as you. At that point, it's just, you know, doing the same thing as I said earlier, imposing your will. And whoever can do that, you know, whoever can stick in it, you know, not give up, that's who's going to win the match. And that's really difficult when you're, you know, food deprived, you know, you're super dehydrated and you're like tired from the whole week worth of work and school, and it's just all of that building up to a match, and it's difficult to stay in it. And that's the people that can endure that are the people that win.
I definitely want to get back to the part about mentally staying in a match. I know that's super important, but one big thing, I actually talked to Coach Combs about this last season, but I know there are hydration tests in place, but how much are you typically cutting? And because for someone who has cut weight himself, I know that it is something that is mentally draining. It messes up your sleep schedule. It's not just like, oh, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry. It messes up the whole thing. So how much are you actually cutting with the hydration test?
So the state of Utah allows you to cut 2 pounds a week. So you weigh in at a tournament at 148 one week, you can't go down lower than 146 the next week. So like, say like, you know, you cut down to the next weight class, but you're over that limit, they'll make you wrestle the weight class up. So you have to do a slower cut than most states. Like, there was nights in California where I was cutting like, you know, 4 or 5 pounds in a single day, opposed to, you know, having to do that in 2 to 3 weeks here in Utah. But yeah, this year I'm not planning on cutting a lot of weight. Planning on just, you know, working on my strength and keeping that strength. But, you know, last year I was only cutting like 4 or 5 pounds. The year before I was cutting like closer to 8 or 9, which isn't fun. Yeah.
It makes it very difficult. I mean, cutting down from any sort of weight is difficult, but have you found that you feel better when you're hydrated and when you're stronger, or do you feel better when you're going up against lighter guys because you have had a bigger weight cut?
It depends, really. It depends on how you cut the weight. The best way to cut weight is, do it long over time. Like, you have 5 pounds to cut, don't do it all in 2 days. You want to do it in a week and a half, so you can go into your match fresh. You don't want to have not been eating for the past 2 days. You want to go in that way. So if you go in that way, then you feel great. But that's best case scenario. That always doesn't happen, and then you go into the match feeling miserable. That is not that. I would rather be a little bit heavier, going up guys against who are about the same strength as me. So it really depends on how you cut the weight.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's actually very interesting. I know a lot of people who do cut weight, and everyone has a different philosophy on it, and so it's fascinating to hear yours. I wanted to go back to what you were talking about with mentally breaking, or staying there mentally in a match. When maybe was the most difficult time that you've ever had to stay mentally in a match, and did you break mentally?
So actually this past season, my old wrestling partner, Jared Miller, the captain of the team last year, one of the captains, we were in practice 2 days before divisional, which is like the state qualifier, and I did a stand-up, and he just pulled me back down wrong over my ankle, and there was a loud pop, and I sprained my ankle and strained my Achilles. And 2 days before the state qualifier, and you have to place top 8 to qualify for state. Mm-hmm. I still decided to wrestle because that was going to be my last match this season if I hadn't. So I got all the way to that tournament. I put myself in the match. I lost some matches that I wouldn't have lost if I was healthy, which I was very upset about to begin with. So I was going into a match against a kid who I beat before, who I'd pinned before, and I went into this, and if I lost, then I wouldn't be in state, and if I won, then I would be in state. And he kind of just caught me in a head and arm throw, and I got pinned, and I was super, super upset. And it was the next day that I could make alternates, and I really didn't want to go. I was I was about to give up mentally, because it was basically I got this pretty crappy hand deal to me, with an injury right before divisional happened, and I lost this match to a kid I've easily beat before, and I was just really, really down and upset, and I wasn't gonna go, and I was convinced by my parents to go again that next day, and I still lost that next day again to a kid that I would have beat in a regular match, and for the alternate spot. That kid ended up going to state, so I was really upset before then. But looking back on it, it was, even though going back that second day and wrestling again didn't really do much for my ranking, it really did a lot for me mentally. It really moved me to that next stage of mental toughness.
What did your parents say to you to convince you to go?
My dad was like, you're right on the verge of learning everything I want you to learn about wrestling, and what wrestling teaches you about life. And he was like, if you give up now, you're gonna lose this opportunity to grow as a person. And it just really I thought about it that night, and he was like, you don't have to go, you can do whatever you want at the end of the day, it's your choice. But I thought about it that night, and he was right. I'd probably be sitting here now regretting that I didn't wrestle if that day, even though it didn't do much for me that day. It probably would have haunted me that I gave up. It was more honestly for me at that point than it was for my ranking, and it was good because I realized it's not really once you're there, you really just want to be tough mentally. Mm-hmm. And I had all the odds. I had very poor luck that week, and obviously, and I'm glad I ended up doing it. Even though I lost, it was it was a good lesson. It was a great lesson learned.
What's going to be different about this next season?
Next year we have a lot more wrestlers. We're striving to get a full team, both for boys and girls. Full team, it doesn't matter really if anybody has no experience or they have tons of experience. We want everybody. We want to build the same kind of chemistry that we had last year between most of the team, and just want to continue that minors wrestling kind of like the passion for the sport, and just really build a new team up from basically nothing. Most of our the only returning wrestlers were basically just the ones we had last year.
Yeah.
So
you and your sister are going to be huge for this team. You're going to be very, very important to this team. Have you two talked at all about how to become better leaders on this team, and how do you do it?
Yes, we actually have talked about that a lot. We've really been talking about a lot of engagement with the team, doing a lot more outside stuff, and really pushing the whole team to get better as a whole, not just focusing on one or two people, but bigger picture, focus on everybody, and really be those people that the team can look up to.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that a lot recently, and I know Rich, she's very excited to wrestle again this year. She placed in state as well, and just looking forward to it.
For this next year, you've got one of the big questions, I guess I should say, is I remember right after Jared had lost in the state championship match to a 3-time All-American, no biggie.
Placed second in nationals, Bridger Ricks.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's unbelievable. Yeah, so after Jared's loss to Bridger, I talked to him. He was in great spirits, and I asked him, hey, so what's going to happen? Because Coach Combs probably won't be here because Stone's gone, and then Annika's leaving, so what's going on there? And he told me that he believed that there were going to be some big coaching changes. Do you have any information on that?
As of right now, we know that most of the coaches, if not all the coaches, are going to be back at some capacity. We don't know who's going to be the head coach yet, but we do know for sure that all of the coaches are very passionate about the team. Even though that Jared's dad doesn't have any, basically the 3 main coaches last year, Coach Futch, Coach Miller, and Coach Combs, don't have any children on the team anymore. They're still really passionate about the team and its success as a whole. So they'll all be back in some sort of capacity, and we'll see how it plays out and who ends up being the head coach, because they're all really busy. There's going to be them, and then my dad will help out here and there as well.
Who are you expecting to give you the best looks in the wrestling room?
Right now, probably Prosper. He's probably going to be my main partner this year. And he's a strong kid. He's very fun, to say the least. People that know him will know exactly what I'm talking about. Other than that, we've got most of the other kids are in the lower weight classes. He's going to be the weight class above me. So, probably me and him this year.
That'll be great.
And Jared will be back as well every once in a while to train with us.
I know he mentioned that he wanted to do that, make sure that he could help you along with the entire team out. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to us. There's so many questions, and it's such a fascinating sport to me. Love being able to cover it, and we look forward to continuing to do so.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
Of course, of course. Hey everyone, right now we are hanging out with Ryan Devine of PCSS. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So you are the Youth Development Director here at PCSS, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And so what specifically are you doing every single day as the Youth Development Director?
Managing our youth sports here for Park City Ski and Snowboard. So right now in the summer, all of our week-long summer camps, freestyle development programs, as well as our public programs.
So with that all being said, how long do these summer programs run for?
It depends. You can sign up for just a week-long camp, Monday through Friday. You can do partial summers, or you can do the full summer. We also have single session drop-ins as well. Yeah.
Very cool. So kids come here, and so it's almost like, is it almost like a summer camp, you would say, or are you more so training? What is it?
It's more training. A lot of kids come here to learn how to do flips, bigger spins, and in the safety of the pool. But some kids do use it as a summer camp because it is a lot of fun, and get to ski in the summer.
Are there kids that come that are they want to do this, at a very high level, and then are there other kids who are just doing it for fun, have never done something like this before? What is the talent range, I should say?
It's a mix of both, to be honest. We have kids in our week-long camp this week that are in our winter program as well and ski with us year-round. We also have some kids that are out of town and just thought it was a cool experience and, wanted to get a little more experience jumping, and so they signed up, and now they're here.
So what specifically are they doing from day to day? Are they jumping off of these jumps here? Are they on the trampolines? What are they doing?
Both. We start out each day working on the trampolines, basic air awareness, working on spins, flips, and then we come, ramp in the morning, take a lunch break, back on the trampolines, and then another ramp session to cap off the day.
Seems like a pretty long day. How long are they typically here for?
About 7 hours. So they arrive, camp starts at 9 o'clock and ends at 4 o'clock.
Wow, so they're here for a really long time, and by the end of the week, is there like a significant amount of improvement?
Yeah, we typically see a huge improvement by the end of the week for most campers. But if they, want to progress even more and, do like the double and triple back there, they're going to need to spend a few summers, ramping with us to get those skills up to par.
What would you say is probably one of the most rewarding things about your job?
Honestly, when kids learn new tricks and then get, really stoked on it, that's probably the best part is, yeah, the excitement I see. And then when they get to, when they do something for the first time, like their first flip or something that maybe has challenged them throughout the summer and they finally get that, that's really cool.
How long have you been doing this for?
About 14 years now. Started coaching in 2009 when I was in college. I was a former competitor. So I've been involved with the sport since I was about 8 years old.
What made you want to start coaching and specifically do what you do now?
Honestly, it sounded like a fun summer job. I'd been around competing. I used to train here in the summers myself and needed a job. And I was like, I want to coach. That sounds really fun to hang out at the pool all summer. And, it's been super rewarding and it's kept me around ever since. So.
Does the weather affect it at all? I know we're actually getting a little bit of rain right now. Is that going to affect anything for these kids?
Not really, no. The rain actually helps. You don't have to water the ramps as much. As long as there's no lightning, we'll be out here jumping.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for the time to talk. Really appreciate it. And good luck for the rest of the summer, I should say.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
That will do it for tonight's installment of The Scoreboard. On Tuesday, we are hanging out with Caitlin Neal, who recently finished up her time on The Ultimate Fighter. We talk about what it was like filming a reality TV show all about fighting, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. You won't want to miss it. For the entire Scoreboard team, I am Blake O'Rourke, and we will see you all on Tuesday.